two letters, AI. And depending on who's talking, those letters mean either the salvation of the species or its replacement. I want to do something simpler than either. I want to tell you what artificial intelligence actually is, what it actually isn't, and why the difference matters far more than any headline you've read this week. Because here's what I've noticed. Most of the public conversation runs at two volumes. The first volume is panic. So we got Skynet, mass employment, the singularity. And the second is wonder. ChatGPT will write your novel, will cure your disease, will design your kitchen, will raise your kids. Both volumes share one problem. Neither knows what AI is. So here, I want to fix that. At its base, AI is the combination of three things: data, algorithms, and output. The data is the oceans of digital text and images and audio we've produced as a civilization. Every photo uploaded, every search typed, every line of text on every public web page. That's the raw material. The algorithms are mathematical models that comb through that data looking for patterns. They learn which words tend to follow which words. They learn which pixels tend to correspond to which objects. They learn which sounds tend to match which speakers. The output is what comes out the other side. So those are things like predictions, classifications, or in the case of generative systems like ChatGPT, brand new text and images and audio that look convincingly human-made. That's the whole machine. Pattern recognition and probability. When you ask ChatGPT a question, nothing is thinking about your question. There's no quiet little consciousness inside the computer turning your words over, a digital cup of coffee. The system is scanning patterns and giving you the most statistically likely next word based on everything it was trained on. And that probably sounds underwhelming, and it should, because this distinction is the whole game. AI can simulate thought. It cannot be thought. It mirrors a human expression. There's no awareness behind the mirror, though. Reflection without reflection. And that's what makes the topic, I think, both fascinating and a little unsettling. And there are really two categories worth distinguishing. We have narrow AI and we have general AI. Narrow AI, so that first kind, is everything we have right now. Every functioning AI system on Earth. That's Netflix's recommendation engine, medical imaging software that flags tumors, facial recognition at airports. Each of these tools is designed and trained for one specific task. Within that lane, it can perform extraordinarily well. Sometimes better than a human, it's true. So take it out of that lane, though, what happens? It falls apart. Ask the breast cancer model to recommend your weekend movie, and you'll get nonsense. Then there's general AI, AGI, artificial general intelligence, sometimes called strong AI. That's the idea of a machine that could reason and learn and act across domains the way a human being does. A machine that could diagnose your X-ray, write you a sonnet, learn to play chess, and then hold an existential conversation about all three afterwards. This kind of AI, general AI, doesn't exist. Despite the headlines, despite the science fiction movies, we are nowhere near building a machine that can replicate the full scope of human cognition. And I'll give you a piece of evidence. In 2025, a team at Apple published a paper called The Illusion of Thinking. They tested the most advanced reasoning models on the market, the ones that show you their chain of thought against problems of escalating complexity. Past a certain threshold, accuracy didn't gracefully degrade. It collapsed. It collapsed to zero. And here's even the strange part. The models didn't try harder. They used fewer reasoning tokens. They gave up. Even when the researchers handed the models the complete recursive algorithm for the Tower of Hanoi puzzle, written out in the prompt as a sketchpad, the models collapsed at the same complexity points. The bottleneck isn't strategy discovery. The bottleneck is constant symbolic execution. A 6-year-old who grasps recursion can apply it to any number of disks. A frontier reasoning model cannot. Every AI today is narrow, brittle, it's constrained. It may impress us with its speed, its precision, even its apparent creativity. It is not alive, not aware, not self-reflective. What we call intelligence in machines is the refinement of functions. It is not the birth of understanding. AI is already woven into the fabric of your day. You hardly even notice it at this point. Netflix suggests your next show. Amazon recommends what you should buy, sometimes before you realize you need it, if you need it at all. Google Maps reroutes you because of an accident 2 kilometers up the road that nobody has reported yet. Your email spam filter sorts what's real from what's junk before you even see it. And then, of course, there's the more impressive generative AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Mistral, systems that produce text and essays and conversation that can feel surprisingly human. They write poems. They compose emails, answer your questions as if they understood you. Most of us encounter AI dozens of times a day. We hardly notice. That's the deeper problem. The smoother it gets, the easier it becomes to forget there's no one home behind it. No awareness, no soul, no understanding. Just code and data. It's remarkable. It's complex, it's beautiful even, but it's still just code and data. What worries me is the day we forget the lights aren't on. AI definitely does hold enormous potential if we guide it well. Take medicine, for example. Google's DeepMind has trained models that identify breast cancer in mammograms at accuracy rivaling rates from top radiologists. IBM Watson Health sifts vast medical datasets to spot patterns a human doctor might miss, and Genomics Labs uses AI to tailor therapies to individual parents so a doctor can treat the person in front of them, not just the condition on the chart. That's technology serving the dignity of the human person. Take accessibility. Microsoft's Seeing AI narrates the visible world for people who are blind. It describes objects, it reads texts aloud, recognizes familiar faces. A company called VoiceIt uses AI to interpret atypical speech for people with motor or speech impairments, restoring their voice in conversation. AI-powered prosthetics, another one, and adaptive wheelchairs learn from each user's movements and return not just function, but a sense of agency. And then we also have environmental stewardship. Google's AI for Social Good Initiative and NASA's research teams use machine learning to predict wildfires, to monitor deforestation, optimize disaster relief. Farmers use AI to analyze soil data and reduce fertilizer waste. More food and less harm. And what these examples share is a single thread: technology placed at the service of human community. So AI, when rightly ordered, can amplify human flourishing. It isn't self-guiding. It has no values of its own. It mirrors our values. So the question becomes the only question even worth asking. What kind of values are we training into our machines? with promise comes risk. The risks aren't hypothetical, they're already here. Start with bias. AI learns from data, and the data carries the prejudices of societies that produced it. Facial recognition has been shown in study after study to misidentify people with darker skin at significantly higher rates than those with a lighter skin. The algorithm doesn't want to discriminate. The algorithm has been trained on biased datasets that reflect human bias. The same is true in hiring software. Recruitment algorithms have quietly filtered out, for example, women's resumes and downgraded candidates with non-Western names. Technology amplifies what's already in the data. So that means that without safeguards, AI becomes an engine that reproduces injustice, but at machine speed. Then there's the famous question of work and human dignity. Automation promises efficiency, but it can also hollow out meaning. Work isn't only a paycheck, it is one of the ways we participate in creation, express our talents, contribute to the common good. When machines replace human labor at a large scale, what happens to that sense of purpose? What happens to communities built around shared work? But it doesn't end there. Then there's privacy. AI does enable forms of surveillance we could barely imagine 10 years ago. Every search, every movement, every click, every scroll is tracked, analyzed, monetized. Our lives become data points for someone else's profit. And over time, that erodes something essential, the interior freedom that undergirds moral responsibility. When people feel constantly watched, they begin to act differently, less freely, less authentically. And finally, there's misinformation. Generative AI can now treat deepfakes in such a way that they're so realistic that even experts struggle to tell what's true and what's fabricated. Fake news articles, cloned voices, manipulated videos, all spreading faster than truth can catch up. The result isn't only confusion, it's the corrosion of trust. And when trust collapses, community itself starts to fracture. We'll spend an entire later lecture on that last one there. Let me shift now from what AI can do to what AI will never be. The first limit, the most fundamental, is consciousness. Human beings have what philosophers call an interior life. We don't just process information, we live it. We don't simply register stimuli, we feel. We know what it's like to taste coffee on a cold morning, to stand before a sunset and feel small, or to grieve the loss of someone we love. That inner what it is like dimension is what philosophers call qualia, and it's the lived texture of consciousness, the first-person experience of being alive. AI does not have that. It has no inside. It manipulates symbols. It maps probabilities. When ChatGPT or any other model generates an answer, there is no awareness behind the screen. No someone who understands what it's saying. A mirror of human language. It's never a participant in human experience. This is more than a technical issue. It's an ontological difference, a difference in kind, not just a difference of degree. When you feel awe, when you are moved to tears by beauty or injustice, you are doing something no algorithm can replicate. You are participating in meaning. You are conscious of yourself as a subject who experiences, who wonders, who suffers, and who loves. An AI might predict that you will feel awe at a sunset. It will never see the sunset. That interior life is the signature of personhood, and it is precisely the place where machines, no matter how advanced, will always meet a wall when they cannot cross. The second thing AI will never possess is moral agency. AI does not choose. It calculates. It doesn't deliberate between good and evil. It optimizes for outcomes. It doesn't feel the pull of conscience or the tension of responsibility. When a human being makes a moral choice, something interior happens, an awareness of freedom, a weighing of values, a readiness to bear the consequences. AI can't do that. It can process 1,000,000 scenarios in a fraction of a second. None of them involve the question, should I? They only ever ask what is most efficient or what fits the data best. Think about a self-driving car. When one crashes, we don't put the car on trial. We look to the humans, the designers, engineers, regulators, because only a person can bear moral responsibility. There's a striking piece of empirical evidence here. In 2026, this year, Apple researchers identified what they called refusal neurons in large language models. Individual neurons, sometimes just one, that gate whether the model expresses harmful knowledge. Suppress that single neuron without any further training, and the model's entire safety alignment collapses across 7 different models from 1.7 billion to 70 billion parameters. Think about what that tells us. The refusal we see, the moment the model says, I can't help with that, looks like moral judgment from the outside. From the inside, it's a single switch any sufficiently skilled interpreter can flip. There is no network of values being weighed. There is no conscience. There is a switch. A machine can malfunction, but it cannot sin. It can be reprogrammed, but it cannot repent. From an ethical standpoint, AI is a tool. Tools, no matter how complex, have no moral standing. So when we say responsible AI, what we are really talking about is responsible humans. The moral framework and the intentions of the people who design, deploy, and use these systems. That's what we're talking about. The question isn't whether AI can be moral. The question is whether we, its creators, will still be. Now, we've looked at consciousness and moral agency, 2 things that define what it means to be human. The third, and maybe the most profound, is love. And love isn't a calculation. It isn't an output channel. Love is the free act of one person choosing the good of another. Not because it's efficient and not because it's rewarded. We choose it because the other person is good in themselves. Love is the decision to give yourself away, to empty yourself, to make yourself vulnerable, to trust, to be challenged and changed by another person's presence. What the Greeks called agape, willing the good of the other for their own sake. AI can simulate affection. It can mimic companionship. It can write you a love poem or tell you what words sound romantic, but it cannot love. Love requires an interior life. It requires freedom. It requires the ability to step beyond one's own interests for the sake of someone else. That matters deeply right now. We live in a time of rising loneliness. People are tempted to substitute simulation for relationship. A chatbot can be programmed to offer empathy. A robot can hold your hand or remember your birthday. None of that amounts to love. Imitation without interiority. It's gesture without gift. And there's even a quieter danger here. We may start to prefer the simulation. A chatbot that always agrees, always listens, never interrupts, never disappoints, that isn't a friend. It's a mirror that flatters you. And that isn't love. What we actually get is self-confirmation with extra steps. Real love, the kind that mirrors divine self-gift, involves risk and sacrifice and freedom. It binds families, friendships, faith communities. No algorithm, no matter how advanced, can cross that threshold. Love isn't something you compute. It is something you live, and ultimately something that is received. So, after everything AI can and cannot be, what should our responses look like? I want to suggest 3 steps: understanding, evaluation, and engagement. First, understanding. We need to see AI for what it truly is, not idolize it, not fear it, understand it. And that means cutting through the hype and the anxiety. AI is not a god, and it is not a demon. It is a tool. Extraordinarily powerful, yes, and still a tool. Before we can guide it ethically, we need literacy. Not just technical literacy, but moral literacy. The second, evaluation. We have to judge AI by how it affects human dignity and the common good. The question is never simply, can we do it? The question is, should we? And what will it do to us if we do? Technology is never neutral. Every innovation carries moral weight because it shapes how we see ourselves and how we treat one another. The measure is the human person. Does this technology serve human life, or does it diminish it? And third, engagement. We can't critique from the sidelines. We have to help shape how AI is designed and deployed. That means technologists trained in conscience as well as in code. Policymakers who prize justice as much as innovation. Citizens, all of us, who understand both the power and the limits of these systems and who demand that they be used for genuine human flourishing. This is a call to guide technology, to humanize it, to infuse it with wisdom, because wisdom, not intelligence, is what ensures progress serves people rather than the reverse. Now you may be asking, what does this look like all in practice? Well, in design, human dignity has to sit at the center of the room. Most innovation today is driven by efficiency alone, faster, cheaper, more profitable. That isn't enough. We need systems built around fairness and transparency and compassion. If the purpose of technology is to serve the human person, then the question must always be, does this help people flourish, rather than simply does it work? In education, it means that we need to teach AI literacy in a way that goes beyond coding. Students need technical skills, but they also need ethical formation. They need to understand how AI shapes society, how it influences behavior, how to evaluate its moral implications. It's about learning how not to become machine-like ourselves. And in policy, we need governance that protects human values, that reducing bias, safeguarding privacy, building accountability. AI should never become a mechanism that hides responsibility behind complexity. Every decision an algorithm makes can be traced back eventually to a human intention, a human hand, and a human conscience. If we build, if we teach, and legislate with wisdom, we can resist the 2 great temptations of our time. The temptation to idolize AI as a digital savior, the temptation to diminish it and dismiss it as nothing other than a passing curiosity. AI is neither God nor ghost. It is a tool, a powerful one, still a tool, something to be guided, refined, and stewarded for the sake of humanity. And that stewardship, that call to shape technology in service of life, is where our deepest responsibility and our greatest hope both lie. In the next video, I want to press into the deepest layer of that never. We've said AI cannot be conscious, right? Cannot be a moral agent, cannot love. The next question is why? What does it actually mean to be a person, to be conscious? And why is it something a machine cannot become? If that question matters to you, subscribe and the next video will be waiting for you when it goes live. Until then.